Well, good morning, everyone. Most of you have probably sat in on several presentations. So one of my main objectives today is not to have this slide deck go all the way to the end. So anyways, my presentation is on leadership, proven fundamentals and practices. It's taken from the Leadership Challenge book, Kouzes and Posner. So a little bit about me. I'm a certified HTM senior director for Banner Health in the Western region. My areas of responsibility are basically everything outside of Arizona. So that encompasses about 5 states. I got into this field way back in the early 80s. So I have over 30 years experience. I was a frontline contributor, a general biomed, certified biomed, and then transitioned into the imaging world and then into leadership. So sprinkled throughout this presentation will be some examples of my real life leadership and my journey in leadership, and using some of these principles that I'm going to present to you, I'll tell my story. And if this does this again, I'll have somebody come up to run.
You have to use the light touch.
Okay. So not affiliated, kind of general conflict of interest, please silence your mobile devices. And like I said earlier, this is going to be a little bit interactive presentation. So off we begin. Some of you may have seen this slide before, but a little bit about Banner Health. We're one of the larger nonprofit health systems in the United States. We're based here in Phoenix. And as I mentioned earlier, my scope of responsibility and coverage is everything outside of Arizona. We encompass about 28 hospitals. We'll probably add a couple more before the end of the year, depending on how things work out. We have over 50,000 employees in the Banner Health organization. A quick little org chart here to kind of give you a little reference point. I'm the senior director in the Western region. I report up to a vice president who reports up to a senior vice president of IT. And then that person reports directly to our chief clinical officer. So we're very flat, and we have really a direct tie to our chief level operators, if you will, of the company. So, as I said, we're going to do a little icebreaker, and we're going to take from John Sire's back this way over here. This group of people, what I want you to do on the leaderboard over here is to write down attributes of what a good leader means to you. And so I'd like you to come up with 7 to 10. And while everyone's up and engaged in this, introduce yourself. That's the whole idea of being here. It's networking and get to know your neighbor. The rest of these, from like Joe Davis over and back, I'd like you to come up to this board and write down attributes of what you feel a good parent is.
A couple weeks ago. I know ETS there. Come on up here. Like a hostage patient.
Like when I spell everything, I can do that.
Next. You guys don't want
Right. Sure.
Good attributes.
Took your turn. You gotta go first, man, that's why.
Accountable. Accountability, accountable, however you want to word it. Okay.
Those are expected
Purposeful, word that.
What the right word is here, but at least give you the opportunity Always the big difference between a manager and a leader. They use no. The manager does their mistakes. The manager does.
That's why we're all huddling.
The leader does the right thing.
Oh, there you go.
There's a difference.
Turn the thing up to 8.
So I bet.
All about.
Oh, there you go.
Being charged, upcoming growth associated. That's kind of my mantra.
I'm their leader, which way is it?
You course correct from the back, you jump in front, you have to. course correct
How many you guys got? One,
Yeah, we did 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, compassionate is a good one. It's just copy of the room.
No, no cheating. Any more from parents group? You can shout one.
That's like the guy that says to.
Big roll, something like that.
So Justin, I did this internally a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, that came up as well. Except it was, I think it was wealthy.
Yeah, I wish, but again, that disqualified me on the appearance list, I guess. Well,
Yep. Go ahead. How we doing?
All right.
Are we there?
There.
Please say again. I'm probably.
Open over Sharon's road.
So did everybody meet anybody new? Somebody already cranked it as high as it'll go. Is that Stacy? Stacy, did you adjust the thermostat? All right. Well, while we go through the presentation, I will, you guys can look at the leaderboard and the parent board, and then I'll come back to that, and we'll kind of close up with those attributes that you listed for both leaders and parents. And thank you for your active participation. It's always nice to see. Icebreaker times 2. We're not going to do this one right now, but the mission statement within Banner Health is making healthcare easier so life can be better. I'm going to come back to that at the end of this presentation, and you'll see how that ties into my overall leadership presentation today. These circles up here represent a little bit of our scope of business within Banner Health. We support within our company about $1.7 billion of medical equipment. And the 3 circles over to the right are our outside revenue generation on it. So just a little bit of information on Banner Health. I only touched it once. So, Kouzes and Posner, this whole presentation revolves around 5 practices and 10 commitments. A little bit about this book is, the name of it is The Leadership Challenge. It's an incredible book. It's one of the top 10 business books of all times out there. These 2 individuals are considered one of the top 50 coaches in the country. And within the book, there's all kinds of case studies under each of these 5 practices. What's really unique about these practices and commitments is it covers all industries, not just in healthcare. It's across all industries and it's throughout the world. So the 5 practices of exemplary leadership, what are they? First one is model the way. Second one is inspire a vision. Third one is to challenge the process. Fourth is enabling others to act. And the most important and the final one I listed up here is to encourage from the heart. In other words, have it. And we'll go into each one of those. So model the way. One of the examples or practices under model the way is clarifying values. The other one is set the examples. To effectively model the behavior they expect from others, leaders must be clear about their guiding principles. Within Banner Health, we call these our core behaviors. Those core behaviors are listed out. They're customer obsessed, relentless improvement, courageously innovate, disciplined focus, foster accountability, and continuously earn trust. One of the things I like to point out here is under the continuously earn trust is the simplest way to continuously earn trust is to be absent to the loyal. So what I mean by that is you don't talk about others who aren't present. And when you get that engaged with the people that you lead, it's really interesting to see how quickly that all catches on. And the people, they'll self-check each other when they hear others, if they cross over that line and start talking about others who aren't present. When you get everybody on the same page, being loyal to the absent, it really builds that team unity and gets your team functioning at a higher level.
I like that phrase, being loyal to the absent.
It's very effective.
That's just.
You can use it in your meetings. You can use it actually, I've used it with all levels of administration that I interact with when the situation comes up. And it's just a check and balance. And when you do that, you're actually effectively modeling the behaviors that you expect from others also. And you just keep everybody on that same level. And simple daily acts, effective leaders set an example for others to model the way. Whether you want to recognize it or not, we as leaders are constantly being watched, not just by our teams, but for those of us that work in hospitals, as we walk the halls, as we do rounding, we're being evaluated every moment of the day when we're out in the public. The way one tells stories, manage times, and the language one uses to recognize and reward is another way that we set the example. So some examples that I use is staying on schedule during meetings. I hold everyone accountable if my meeting starts at 11 and it's over at noon. it's over at noon. So that's keeping everybody on par and modeling that expectation for those that we holding everyone accountable. So when I hold a meeting with my direct reports and everyone is on time, within Banner we have these little tokens of appreciation. Might sound kind of corny, but they're little tokens of appreciation. You can collect those, and then you trade those in at like a gift shop for Banner cards, if you will, for pizza cutters, water glasses, t-shirts, so on and so forth. But something as simple as that really drives holding people accountable. And at the same token, you're recognizing their commitment and their respect to you for your time for being on the meeting on time. Continuously earn trust, I kind of spoke on this. How do we do that? My number one way of doing that is being absent, or being loyal to the absent. Having integrity, some say, I can't remember who stated it, but have integrity like an oak. Don't sway on your integrity. That's one of the number one things that people want in their leaders is honesty. So, the second practice is inspire a vision. Envision the future and enlist others as you inspire this vision. Without willing followers, there can be no leaders. Banner's mission statement is make healthcare easier so life can be better. I bring that up here because every day with people that I lead, I instill that mission statement and believe in it, that people will not follow you if they don't believe that you're sincere in what that overall vision is. Within Banner Health, it's really simple that our vision is make healthcare easier so life can be better. Enlist the help of others. Forge a unity of purpose, a passion to make a difference. Uplift others with enthusiasm and excitement, striving for group goals. With these commitments is how you build your vision within the group setting. So an example of this, of inspiring the vision, is making the mission statement real to everyone's daily activities and at the center of their individual decision-making process. I like to use the Friday afternoon call. So my teams work in both the imaging arena and in the biomedical arena. And we've all taken calls, whether it's in a leadership or frontline contributor role, that it's Friday afternoon and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And if your instant reaction is, how do I jump to the call because I'm going to have white with dinner at 5, then you don't have that mission statement at the center of your focus. And so getting the mission statement at the center of the people that you lead, in the center of their decision-making process, and weave that into their daily activities, drives that team engagement and drives that customer satisfaction. The third process is challenge the process. Search for opportunities, experiment, and take risks are the 2 commitments under challenge the process. Exemplary leaders are pioneers in taking the initiative and searching for innovative ways to improve their own work, that of their teams, and their organizations. The work of us is change and requires a willingness to take action every day. Quite frankly, being an effective leader, it's work, it's hard work, and it takes commitment day in and day out if you want to achieve extraordinary things. Everyone has the ability to do that, but it takes motivation and commitment. Experiment and take risk. Learn from failures and successes. Innovation comes from acutely listening to those that we lead and those those that we report up to. And what I mean by acutely listen is if you're engaged in a conversation that's, whether it's, you know, one of those serious type of conversations or just a general conversation, you really need to center yourself and get yourself centered and not allow what's going on externally to allow you to focus on the person that you're communicating with. And if you're unsure what that person is saying, you know, ask those clarifying questions and try to get to the root of the matter of what that person is trying to communicate. Reject the status quo. Test your own abilities, so step outside your box. Improve, take risks, and constantly generate small wins, making it easier for the team to succeed. So I think you've heard this maybe echo a little bit in some of these presentations about getting out of the silo. Within my team, when I originally took over, one of my responsibilities was to marry, if you will, the imaging engineers and the general biomed engineers. And it was a huge challenge to get them to step out of their silos. And one of the big things that gave me a lot of progress and success in that was every time we had a success around sharing knowledge between the two teams, I pointed that out. And sometimes that sharing of knowledge saved many hours in labor just in traveling. So the map that I showed you, I have a base team that's in Colorado, but we support Wyoming, Nebraska, and then I have another team that's basically in the Reno, Nevada area, and we have 2 hospitals kind of on opposite ends out of Reno in Susanville, California, and one in Fallon, Nevada. And all of my imaging engineers are stationed in Colorado. And by just some simple knowledge sharing between the imaging engineers and general biomeds, we have countless times saved travel to Ogallala, Nebraska. It's about 180 miles. And we are able to talk with our biomed frontline personnel there and engage that interaction with the imaging engineer and resolve problems, or at least resolve the problem to a point where the imaging guy can buy a couple of days and then make it a more efficient trip when we travel out to that location, because we have other facilities on the way out there. So he's not just making one journey to a full oh, I'm so sorry.
It happens to all of us.
So this one. The fourth practice is enabling others to act. We do that through a commitment to fostering a collaboration within the team and strengthening others. Exemplary leaders know they can't take it alone. We can't do everything for everyone. We're only as good as the teams that we lead and the cohesiveness of those teams. They're the ones that drive our success and the success of our organization. Leadership is a team effort. Strong and trusting relationships can transform shared visions into reality. Kouzes and Posner, they have done research for over 35 years, and one of the #1 attributes of a leader is honesty. And it doesn't matter in what country they did this, or what demographics are, or what industry it is. Strong and trusting relationships are key in building successful teams. Strengthen others, help others from the heart, have empathy. How many people in this room that lead people know the spouses of the employees that they lead? Very good. A good key point, Karen, that I would recommend, if you don't, get to know your people. sit down, take 5 minutes, chat with them, find out what makes them tick. That really allows you to see through their lens when they come to you with a problem or they come to you with a suggestion. And most importantly, be there for them. And I had one COO that I interacted with quite a bit, and the story he shared with me, one of his employees was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he didn't know anything about it. This person was very private, and that person ended up in the hospital. And as soon as he found out that person was in the hospital, I think it was a weekend, he dropped everything what he was doing, made a trip to the hospital to check to see if there was anything he could do for that person. That is an incredible example of servant model leadership. So be there for your people when you can. This is where we're at. Strengthen others. Leaders make sure that when they win, everybody wins. Share the credit. Celebrate. Sharing power and information builds capacities and capacities of others to be successful. One of my big drivers is I want everyone around me to be successful. It doesn't matter if they're brand new to my team or they're a 30-year veteran on my team or those that I interact with. It just doesn't stay within the technology management group. It's everyone at every facility that I interact with. It's how can I help you to be successful? Be a coach, teacher, clear obstacles, and support others. The big thing here for me is find those obstacles and clear them out of the way for the people that we lead. That is another very key thing that we can do. So example here, is everybody in the room familiar with voice survey? Know what it's about? I know the banner folks are. But voice survey is put on by Paul Metrics, and it measures leadership effectiveness and employee engagement. It's 100% confidential. And when I first moved into leadership several years ago, I was a frontline contributor, like I said. And then I moved into a entry-level leadership position. So I moved from a peer to a leader. It was probably the most hardest step I've ever taken in my career, was that first step of moving into leadership. Because I had these relationships with some people that I worked side by side for about 15 to 16 years. And if you haven't experienced it, it's really difficult because those people that you worked with for so long, they have these preset notions that, well, hey, I don't have to do it that way because, I've worked with Todd, he knows what I can do. And one of the most important things I did was, I call it setting the field. And we all know what our system boundaries are. But I set boundaries kind of like in a baseball field. I set my boundaries for the people that I lead within the infield. So they knew if they were starting to step out into the outfield a little bit, that they were getting in that gray area. If they went out of bounds, out of the foul lines, there was absolutely no doubt in their mind they know they overstepped. All right. I'm about ready. Yeah, that's where I'm going. DJ. So on the voice survey thing, be a champion of collaboration across teams, have empathy, strengthen, encourage, and empower others. So my further story in the voice survey was in those first year that I was exposed to the voice survey, I was in the bottom 5% of Banner Health. I went into remedial training. And it didn't matter if you were a new leader or you were a leader for 15, 20 years, whatever. If you were in that bottom percentile, you went in to additional training on voice survey. And it was really hard for me to buy off on some of the principles that our company was teaching around leadership. And quite frankly, my heart wasn't in it. So it just proved to me that if you didn't believe in those principles and you weren't unwilling to try them or step outside your comfort zone, you were not going to be successful. But I was kind of a slow learner, and it took me 2 years. So my employer had a little bit of grace to allow me to stay in a leadership role after 2 years. And now I can say after several years, 2 of my leaders have scored perfect voice survey scores. So across the healthcare industry, that put them in the top 1% of leaders as scored by Qualimetrics. And I can attribute all of that success really to these 5 practices and 10 commitments. The 5th one is encourage the heart. Recognize those contributions of our employees and celebrate values and victories. Leaders need to make sure that people understand in their hearts what they do matters. Leaders encourage the heart by putting into action the principles and essential practices that support our basic need to be appreciated for who we are or what we do. And I know I'm breaking about every PowerPoint rule here. Oh, go back one. Because I'm reading word for word. And I did that purposely on recognizing contributions here. Because that second bullet point, the basic human need to be appreciated, we all like that. And you can get so much mileage on it. And celebrate values and victories. Okay. So, my team's this little slide here. There's probably nothing you take from this presentation you can remember. Oh, that was the guy that his teams did the trunk or treat. So at our different hospitals, we have at Halloween time trunk or treat. And at this particular hospital, clinical engineering, you can see our theme was Jurassic Park. We took second, and this one was at our hospital in Greeley, Colorado. Greeley is about a town of 100,000 people or so, and we had a community involvement of, I think we had 4,000 people come through our trunk or treat, and we had, I think it was just, I think right at about 40 different departments that did the trunk or treat celebration. But what was really cool is that my team volunteered their time to decorate and to go out and not get paid. It was all volunteer time. So it shows the true commitment that these people have to the communities that we work with. It's a really cool thing. And yeah, it's all a result of following, these 5 practices and 10 commitments. Next slide. And this was our first place team.
You're hired.
So you can see that this was a family of 5 of one of our employees who went out and got their T-Rex suits. And actually, I'm in one of those suits myself. We had a really good time. Really got to interact with the communities. So create a culture of gratitude. One of my examples I use is because of the geographical area and my teams report to, I have a Monday morning what I call a stand-up. It's only 15 minutes in length, and it's just an opportunity for everybody to check in on that team. And it's not a time to solve problems. It's just a time to share what went on over the weekend, if we have, some systems down or whatever the situation might be. The other thing it is too, is I take this as an opportunity, like over the weekend, if we have guys that are called in, I recognize their efforts to get called in, their response time, whether we were successful getting the systems up and down, how did that unfold? But the key thing is it stays to 15 minutes. I do this all with the bridge line call. And it seems really simple, but it really builds that team unity and gets the communication going between the imaging team. And then I also on there, I have some key biomed leaders on the call also. And it gives them an opportunity to keep building those relationships for the biomed people that are on that call and the imaging team to interact. So that brings us to our first icebreaker. Through this all too quick. About the leader parents. So if you have a moment and you look through these attributes that we listed out, I bet, DJ, if you go over to that, and we're going to see how many commonalities that we have here on those attributes and these attributes. And this is just a little experiment that I do at any presentation that I give. And this is not in the book that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. So the first one that they have up here is patient. Anything like patient over there? Anybody see anything on the leaderboard about patient? Very good.
Yeah.
How about kind?
Compassion.
Yeah.
How about loving?
Compassion.
How about consistent?
Yeah.
How about honest?
Integrity.
Disciplined but fair.
Accountability.
Okay. Communicate. This one's funny. Demanding. Motivating. All right. Yeah. How about coach and educate? Okay. Nurturing.
Accessible. Driving road.
I was going to say, I know this one came from a banner. This is wallet. So, is there one like financial?
His recognition, maybe.
Recognition. Supportive. Something over there about being supportive.
Right.
People in the right roles.
Okay. Protective. Challenge to grow.
Vision.
Pretty amazing, isn't it? That leader and parent attributes see a lot in common. And in fact, I went back and looked at this book this morning. I reference it frequently, and the top 4 attributes of a leader around the globe, regardless of industry, regardless of country, demographics, I mean, you name it, is number 1 is, well, the top 4, the ranking of the top 4 change a little bit depending on the age of the surveyors and country. So country changes a little bit, like China and Turkey, not picking on them, so if you're from there, forgive me. Honesty is number 3, whereas in other areas of the world, honesty is number 1. So honesty is one of the 4. And we have honesty here that's shared between both. The other one is inspiring. They want inspiring leaders. Another one is forward-looking, so creating a vision, inspire your people. And the 4th is competent. So not intelligent, but competent in the areas that you need. And those 4 attributes are universal around the globe and throughout us. So, next. Oh, Becca. So throughout this slide deck, you all get a copy of it, but there's these little links in here, and you click on those, and those will take you to some more relative information on the subject matter. So this is some of the group that I did this similar presentation to a couple of weeks ago. But I guarantee if we look through these lists, you'll find them on the list that you all created. So, what is the profile of a real leader? We are enthusiastic participants in change. We try, fail, and learn from our mistakes. We build self-confidence by learning from others. We capitalize on our strengths and overcome our weaknesses. We understand that leaders go first. And most importantly, it's a daily activity. It's a commitment to what we do. And we practice, 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 and step outside that box. So, making healthcare easier so life can be better. That's my company's mission statement. Everybody in this room should know their company's mission statement, in my opinion. If you don't, I would recommend that you learn it and you support it, and the people that you lead, if they trust you and believe in you, and you show through your daily commitments that you believe in your company's mission statement, you'll see your people putting that mission statement in the forefront of their thinking process when they're going through their daily activities. I've seen it work. This is just a little, you can read this for yourself, but as leaders, we have the ability to really do exemplary things. Implementation facts, this is my best part about this whole presentation. Nobody needs to approve it. The budget impact is $0. It's up to the individual leader to make the personal commitment and dedicate yourself to what works for you. I've found these practices to work extremely well for me and make my teams highly efficient and effective. I'm not trying to look through it through those rose-colored lenses, but my leadership effectiveness scores put on by Qual Metrics put our group in the top decile of all the different companies that they serve in, not just in healthcare, but across the industry. So, and if you saw other banner presentations, we are constantly looking for engaged people. I know we all are. But any questions, any feedback? Around feedback, I highly encourage you to fill out your surveys because I truly look at feedback as a gift. It's how I get better, and I appreciate everyone's time. So, no questions? I'm looking at Mario. I just met you. I found your presentation incredible, and I like the information that you presented. Yep.
So I do have one question, or at least a struggle I have to share. So as you progress as a leader, you have more and more people. So now I have 250. It's really hard to get that personal engagement. Like I'm trying by doing grounding, talking to as many people as possible a day. There's only so much you can do in a day. And sometimes I find myself falling into the trap of always talking to the same people, even maybe they're just more engaging or they're willing to talk more. And I have to force myself to figure out, God, this is the person I have to talk to all the time. Do you have any tips or things that you've done to have such a wide geographic scope and number of people?
I'm going to share one tip I learned here, and it was in your presentation, quite frankly. And no. And if any of you listen to me, body language, listen to that presentation. See, I'm not doing this, not going here. So this is true. Like I said, I just looked at. You made a comment about, at times you sense when people you meet aren't trusting what you say. I would recommend if you're sensing that, then make a mental note of that and make that time available to that person to engage that person. Because as you know, those people that we meet, if somebody's disconnected, it's almost like a little cancer that starts in that team. And if we can't connect with them, that's just going to create a bigger problem. So back to your question about how do we find the time and work our time, most effectively within that team? I would recommend spending that time with those people that we feel a little bit disconnected on and engaging.
So I would add two things to that. We've gone from going with annual performance reviews to quarterly performance reviews, so it's upping the number of touch points. And then something that I personally like in partners, instead of having a meeting, sitting at a desk and looking at chairs and looking at one another, is walking meetings. I've got a porch inside of a hospital where I can actually walk almost 2 miles without going in a circle. So just let's go for a walk, take 15 minutes, half an hour, and have that meeting collaboratively walking together, as opposed to let's sit here and watch the table.
And another comment I have on that I found success with, I call it skip level meetings. So actually you go down to the frontline contributor and round with them, exactly what you're saying. A great time to connect.
I was going to say, if you told your supervisors that you're working on exactly what you expect yourself to do, you're being kind of shifted and challenged for responsibility. And if you want your supervisor responsible to do these little pieces, the like you can't do, and then like managing up, encouraging them to use the data to always get up. I've done various work, let me show you all of this, like getting it kind of like all the information spread, the activity not to be directly, so managing up all the copy, like try to create that kind of culture, then they're going to know you have to go back and you're sending that message to them.
My biggest challenge I find is establishing guardrails, as I like to refer to that. Disconnecting from work. When you manage teams that are 24/7, I feel a commitment to them to be there when that phone rings, whether, it doesn't matter if it's Saturday, Sunday, 2 o'clock in the morning, or whatever. So I would be interested to learn from you all if you have suggestions on those guardrails if you manage 24/7.
I do think I guess my mentality is, if my people are there at 11 o'clock at night and I'm still their leader, then I'm still accessible to them, whether I'm not home at 6 at night or whether I'm still on the floor or up in the office with a project. If my people are there, I'm accessible to them. And that means 4 a.m. That means my phone rings at 4 a.m. And even though it goes off, and every time I look at my husband, we go, honey, I'm so sorry, the phone just rang. His answer is, that phone didn't ring. We wouldn't have the lifestyle that we have. Yeah, it is.
Having your phone and tech connectivity.
Unfortunately, it's encouraged by daughters and never really managed. Just saying.
One thing that I do, and I have to say that is everybody else, one thing I do, like I test my guys. I'll keep my phone on, but if it's important enough for them to leave a message, I'll engage. If it's not important enough for them to leave a message, that's really the difference. It's not, probably 8 times out of 10, they figure it out. Then I check it with the next day, hey, tell me what happened. Or I probably didn't tell them. That's the only part.
That kind of gets to the nature of difference between email, text message, and phone call. Phone call, I do answer right now, text message, so I'm telling you, but you can read it in a minute, and email is I'm telling you, and I don't care if you respond. So it's kind of the priority.
You got enough guys to call you 3 o'clock in the morning, search.
Yeah.
people are gonna think about it for a hot second.
Do I want to wake him up at 3
Do I have
o'clock?
to call my boss at 3 a.m. or something?
Well, a little different take, all this is exactly right. You're all, a little different thing I'm dealing with now is I've got that work 24 hours plus in a row. They want, they're committed, they want to take care of it. The CT shift goes down, they're down. And then they get PM at 8 o'clock in the morning, so they finish after, and they continue working. So we're starting to put some things in place to help them manage work-life balance. We're saying 14 hours, we've got to put a hard stop there.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to just continue on and work. I appreciate the commitment, and there's going to be times that we do have to go over that 14-hour involvement situation. But we're trying to hard part that in to tell the guys, hey, we care about work-life balance.
And Sue, one of our big drivers in 2020 was cross-banner health, is safety first, safety culture, and working past, whatever that number is, whether it's 14 or 16 hours. I stress that to my team. Regardless of the situation, there's always an outlier. 16 hours, you're done. You need to go down, you need to get your downtime. That's when people get hurt, that's when bad things happen. I actually know a couple of engineers in our region that's pretty remote, so it's not uncommon. And this was not members of my team, but members of 2 different OEMs that were driving their cars, across Wyoming. And either one, they fell asleep, or 2, they got hit by another car. Life-changing events, quite frankly. They're both still with us, but had they not felt the need to move at 2 a.m. in the morning to get to the next site at 8 a.m., they never would have been in the situation. So I appreciate everyone's time. If there's no more questions, one more thing I can put up though is when I go to bed at night, my phone is not in my bedroom. So sounds strange, but I've set that expectation with my teams. And yes, there's been situations that happen throughout the night, but we pay our people to be on call, and we empower them and entrust them to make certain decisions, as long as that decision is made with the best interest of the company in mind, and to get the project moving or the request, I fully support them. If we need to course correct, we'll course correct in the morning, but that's how I get 5 hours. Thank you, everyone.